So last time we finally finished up the prologue, and the prologue to this arc is interesting for me because of how much I knew I needed to be able to get out of it topic-wise. And thankfully those videos didn't end up being as controversial as I thought. While parts 2 and 3 generated a wonderful amount of discussion, I was surprised at how many people actually agreed with me and were really happy that someone voiced what they thought were underrepresented opinions. So whether you agreed with me or not, I'm glad you enjoyed them. I'm very proud of the last 2 episodes, especially since those 2 in particular were really some of the first topics I remember wanting to talk about way back in 2010 when I first considered doing a Dragon Ball analysis series on my channel. So achieving that goal after all these years is really special to me. But not every episode is going to be a slow as molasses topic-based episode that can stand alone as an insightful gem or just cause people to wonder how many episodes it's going to take me to get through this arc. So now that we've thoroughly spelunked the caves of absolute stupidity, we're going to get back to more of what's typical of Dragon Ball Dissection. After deciding to just kinda wing it in the face of the artificial humans, our so-called heroes get to work training. Kuririn still hasn't figured out that the Muten Roshi looks like Jackie Chun. Vegeta has apparently gained complete dominion over Bluma's parents as he forces Dr. Brief to build him a training room that increases the gravity to 300 times that of Earth, and it's especially disappointing considering Dr. Brief had recently decided he wanted to get out of the technology business and just build cups. Well, better change that sign back. And Chi-Chi refuses to let Gohan participate until Goku gives her a taste of the old, completely humorous accident because I am so tired of people making the joke that this is domestic abuse. Domestic abuse does not result in cartoony butt bandages that go over the pants instead of on the cartoony wound itself. But in the blink of a page, 3 years have passed and Goku, Gohan, and Piccolo head out to save the world? No. Put up a good fight, get their adrenaline rush at the expense of innocent lives. Let's just say they go to the place Trunks told them to go and leave it at that. We get a nice 2-page color spread of the characters, which looks great and conveniently allows me to deal with design changes all at once in the 1991 Dragon Ball Fashion Extravaganza! First off, let's look at Chaozu's stunning outfit of unfulfilled expectations. Putting Chaozu in this image is some kind of cruel Toriyama joke, because he's not even showing up for this fight. Tenshinhan has finally managed to leave him behind. In fact, I could count the number of panels he shows up in for the remainder of this arc on one hand. And that brings Chaozu to the end of his journey, essentially. He's only going to make cameo appearances from this point on. So let's look back on how Toriyama has utilized him after his initial arc. He gets killed off. He comes back to life. He gets removed from the action. He gets killed off. He comes back to life. He gets removed from the action. What a glorious, not at all repetitive journey. Oh, also he looks the same. Why bother giving him a new design when he's not even here? Because Toriyama, and say it with me folks, doesn't care about Chaozu. Yamcha is showing off a delightful, seemed like a good idea at the time ensemble. He now sports the Kaio kanji to signify his new training, not on the back like Goku, but on the front of his dogi. It would be really cool if Toriyama didn't get tired of drawing it after just a couple of chapters. But it is cool in that it foreshadows his use of all the new moves he learned from Kaio. I'll give you a moment to stop laughing. The funny thing is, Toei actually beat Toriyama to the punch with this one, as Yamcha wears the Kaio kanji on his back in the ultimate decisive battle for Earth. As for Yamcha's hair, while it looks good in this particular image, it usually looks completely stupid. It's by far my least favorite look for him. Like the biblical Samson, Yamcha loses all of his mojo when someone cuts his hair. Bluma would never have left him for Vegeta if he still had his long hair. That's hot. But I didn't even mind the bowl cut, while this is just... ugh. Kuririn steps on the runway in a 3 arcs behind my best friend look. He's added the Goku undershirt and boots to his dogi, this time permanently, unlike when he briefly wore them in the Saiyan and Frieza arcs. No indications to whether or not they're weighted. I'm fine with it, but don't have really strong feelings one way or the other. Goku introduces a Kame-inspired minimalism look, getting rid of kanji entirely as well as replacing his belt with a wider sash. While I prefer Goku and kanji, it is nice to have some change. Personally, I would have liked to see him with the Go kanji for a little bit longer since it really didn't seem to last very long. Also, and this goes for all the Kame students, the neck has really gotten wider and deeper over time, and Goku's has gone to the extreme with this new look. I mean, just compare how much of the undershirt is visible in the Saiyan arc compared to here. Ten Shinhan serves up Shaolin realness in a one-armed uniform. I like it. It's probably my favorite outfit for him, and I wish he didn't get rid of it later in the arc in favor of a crappy-looking white tee, which is probably my least favorite look for him. Vegeta, who we're not actually going to see for a while, still tantalizes us with a new armor style. And while I don't like it as much as the more ornate stuff he wore in the Saiyan and Frieza arcs, I do like it better than his shoulderless armor in the late Frieza arc. The colored and textured shoulder straps really do make all the difference and give it just enough pizzazz. Also, the high neck is a nice choice. Gohan's wearing new boots rather than the Piccolo booties, and everyone else is pretty much the same. Which I guess is just Piccolo and Trunks, and Trunks just isn't wearing this jacket, which isn't a look he even uses in the series, so I don't really know what to say about it. And so concludes the 1991 Dragon Ball Fashion Extravaganza! Anyway, back to the story. Goku has clearly moved past Kintone as he flies long distance on his own here. In fact, I don't think the cloud appears a single time in this arc, which would make the Cell arc the only arc where it doesn't show up. They meet up with Kuririn on the way and discover what they're pretty sure is the island. What? You mean to tell me they didn't even scout the place out beforehand? I mean, geez, if I have a job interview in an area of town I'm not familiar with, I'll drive there the day before just to make sure I don't get lost and end up running late. The fate of the world is at stake, and they're just guessing where they're going. What if there were multiple populated islands all within the radius of a few miles, and they went to the wrong one? Just more lovely incompetence on display. But I've gone into that enough. Thankfully, this is the right island, so they were only negligent in their failure to stop this threat before it happens. And I will at least give Piccolo credit for suggesting they get there an hour beforehand. Yamcha, Tenshinhan, and Bluma are already there when Goku and the others arrive, so I'm just gonna tell myself that they at least did their homework. You know, I have to say that I'm somewhat impressed with Bluma. I mean, it's not terribly wise for her to be here, but I'll take it over her complaining in a cave for months on end. It shows how far she's grown since her early, spoiled days of wanting to adventure in the lap of luxury. And it reminds me a bit of the Piccolo arc where she heads out to the battle even though she knows there's little she can do. However, at this point I'm beginning to wonder if she isn't needing an adrenaline fix. I mean, if she wants to get caught up in this, fine, but why bring the baby along? Did she catch the idiot ball from everybody else? It does give Goku a chance to accidentally call the baby by name and have to cover up how he knows that. He wonders if he's psychic, but since we've seen him inexplicably read people's minds already, I don't think that's really in question. As everyone discusses baby Trunks' parentage, Kuririn asks about his lack of a tail, but it's never elaborated on. Yajirobe shows up just long enough to deliver senzu and then leaves. But as time slips past the intended deadline, Yamcha is once again cast in the role of the doubter, convinced that Trunks was full of crap. Well, you know, the adult one from the future. I'm pretty sure that's a given for the baby. Suddenly there's an explosion and Yajirobe's air car falls out of the sky, which is a shame since I believe it's the longest appearing vehicle in the series up to this point. Yamcha is so shocked, his hair changes back to the bowl cut for a panel. And Gohan realizes the reason the artificial humans got the jump on them is because since they're not organic, they wouldn't have ki for them to sense. Goku sends Gohan to retrieve Yajirobe from the ocean, while the rest go down to find the enemies. And Yamcha is still not convinced these things exist. While it was somewhat cringeworthy before, I will say it's nice to see Goku really taking charge with everyone for really the first time, fully grown into a leadership role, rather than just the dopey kid of the group. We get to see number 19 and number 20, and I quite like the designs. It's kinda like death by way of vaudeville. Although with number 19 around, it's pretty obvious why Chaozu couldn't come along. He'd find the whole doll-faced act quite racist. They wander around town killing people just for fun, and it actually gets pretty gruesome. I mean, number 20 literally squeezes a guy's head off. Well, the carnage causes a lady to scream, which alerts the nearest fighter to the scene, and of course, it's Yamcha. When he arrives, the artificial humans are nowhere to be seen, having levitated above him. Yamcha is momentarily thrown a bone here, when number 19 initially assumes that he's Goku himself. But sadly, we all know why Yamcha is here, and that's to be beaten to prove the situation is serious, with a little extra hearty har-har at his expense, since he was the one most convinced the artificial humans didn't even exist. So he doesn't even get to fight. He just gets one hand over his mouth and another through his chest. Lovely. But effective. The sudden key drop alerts the others, and they arrive to save Yamcha, who is still alive. But while Goku had the bag of senzu in his hand 2 chapters earlier, they mysteriously disappeared when Yajirobe's car blew up, presumably because Toriyama forgot about them. So now it's written that Goku left them back at the meetup point, on the grounds that it's the least useful place for them to be. So Kyurem is given the task of getting Yamcha to safety, while Goku, Piccolo, and Tenshinhan confront the artificial humans. And I do like how Toriyama is divvying up the cast like this. It has become a fairly large group, so splitting them up can allow different dynamics to show through. I like Goku, Piccolo, and Tenshinhan both because having Tenshinhan in the front row after being absent for so long is a good move, and because these 3 aren't together all that much, outside of the original Piccolo battle, that is. Number 20 surprises them by knowing who they are, names and all, but when Goku suggests they move to a different location to prevent innocent casualties, Number 20 counters by saying they don't need to change locations to get to a place with no people, and proceeds to blow up a good chunk of the island. Goku is livid at this pointless loss of innocent life, and punches number 20 in the face to get him to stop. I'd find this whole sequence far more believable and engaging if Goku hadn't insisted on doing nothing to prevent this from happening. If I spot a lit match next to a pile of oily rags and decide to just see how it plays out because I want to find out if I can fight the resulting fire, it makes me look like kind of a douche when I lament all the people who died in the blaze. Look, don't blame me for continuing to bring this up when the story keeps calling it back to my attention. At any rate, they fly off to a new location, which worries the recovered Yamcha, who has realized the artificial humans can suck ki out through their palms. So at the very least, he has that going for him, that he was able to figure that out before anybody else. Kyurem and Gohan fly off to warn the others, and while Yamcha struggles against the fear that just having been impaled can give a guy, he finally pulls himself together with the inspiring battle cry of, "I'm just going to watch!" Ugh. So Toriyama whittles down the cast by having Chaozu not show up at all, and then by taking Yamcha out of an active fighting role almost immediately. So much for having the gang back together. However, there's a nice little gag of Bluma yelling at Yajirobe that he should join the fight too, with him remaining deadpan against it before simply stating he can't go because he can't fly. I love it. Goku and the others land in the standard Toriyama Rocky outcropping fight location, and they rap for a bit. Number 20 explains that Dr. Gero used miniature bug robots to spy on Goku and friends ever since he defeated the Red Ribbon Army, to figure out what kind of artificial humans would be needed to defeat him in retaliation for destroying the army and stopping them from taking over the world. Gee, if only Dr. Gero had known what Red's wish really was. But, you know, Dr. Gero seems to have just been a low-level functionary. It's not as if Toriyama's gonna come along decades later and say that Dr. Gero is actually a founding member or something stupidly ridiculous like that. However, it turns out those spy robots didn't follow the gang to Namek, as Dr. Gero assumed he had a satisfactory knowledge base of Goku's abilities. But that means they don't know about super science. I find that whole moment very satisfying. It's one of the few parts of this arc that really ties into the past, allowing it to be viewed in a new light. After all those years of research, there's this fatal flaw in the data that allows Super Saiyan to feel like a game-changing trump card. Especially after the Frieza arc had put the heroes behind the 8-ball for almost the entire thing, it feels good to start out with the tables turned in this way. Goku begins fighting number 19, and this is a fight I find to be very underrated. Now that I think about it, it might be one of my favorite fights in this arc. It's not the most visually impressive, although I can never forget that piece of choreography where Goku stops number 19's headbutt with his hand and then kicks him into the air. It's fairly short, but that means it doesn't overstay its welcome. What makes it a real winner for me is just how much is going on, and how much everyone brings to the table. It starts out like a simple curb stomp in Goku's favor, but it ends with Goku losing. And in between, everything shifts, subtly at first, but then more and more overtly. Rather than the usual peanut gallery banter of "I couldn't see him move," and "I can't believe he did that," the other characters all bring different observations and perspectives at different times. Goku is out of breath even at the beginning. He's rushing the fight. The artificial humans drain ki, so is that the problem? A senzu doesn't help. Yamcha knows what they can do firsthand. Piccolo and Gohan know what a Super Saiyan should be capable of. It really fleshes us out into an engaging mystery and demonstrates that it's not the combat that makes a fight interesting, it's what's actually happening in a fight that makes it interesting. I find it an especially effective moment when Goku is so exhausted, Piccolo has to stop him from firing a second Kamehameha when he's already had one absorbed by number 19. But Gohan finally realizes it's the heart disease that had killed Goku in the original timeline that Trunks had warned about. Goku never got sick, so he never took the medicine Trunks gave him. For some reason, the timing of the disease changed, so now Goku is beaten and having his ki drained out, and there's nothing anyone can do. See, this storyline can produce some decent drama after all. It almost makes me forgive that this is just its way of falling back on that tired old gem of removing Goku from nearly the entire rest of the arc. Almost. I got big news! If you're going to be in the Dallas, Texas area next month, I will be making my first official con appearance at KamehaCon, running May 4th through 6th at the Irving Convention Center in Irving, Texas. Hope to see you there!